Clint,
Colette.
how are we doing? Should we speed talk our way through this?
We may need to. Yeah, it's been a week. Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, they're okay for now.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
you can just say that they're not, and we can splice things or however we need to do it, because we're already gonna splice. This is a
Yeah.
post-recorded intro, obviously, by our outfits and general demeanor. Yeah.
We've
What's
been forced into a lot of adaptive behaviors in the last week.
adaptive behaviors this week? A lot.
Yeah.
So what's going? You just a storm this week. Just
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
is off.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I'm on call for our incident commander, rotation, our nerfs, like we
Mm-hmm.
talked about this week. Um, having spent the prior 2 weeks on and off of an incident every day, it was like a slow burn, degraded performance. What the fuck is happening? Every day something different is weird about this incident that took us a long time to mitigate, and we got it mitigated. And this is the craziest thing. Literally yesterday we got to that point where we're like, okay, we flipped it on and back off, and it went away and it came back. We're pretty sure we got it. And I'm like, great. Oh, everybody, okay. Let's post a message, let's go to the post incident. And then my phone's like beep 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 beep. And I'm like, okay, well, y'all just cool, good job, I gotta go to another one. And then that was like 4 hours intense, really important, like critical time constrained response where like you have to do it now, you can't like defer anything.
Yeah.
And then so like finish all that, get through it. Major, like incredible success actually after failure, like for sure, like impressive. I'm like so proud of everybody who responded, and even the customer who wasn't happy ended up like impressed, like, okay, but you did fix your mistake. So I was like, I went to bed like, this is gratifying. But then, yeah, I'm on call this morning, and I was in doing like the happy stuff, like moving statuses to resolved.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, I'm like, oh, cool. I'm going to record this intro we've been deferring because of all this mess. And like, right as I'm getting ready to do that, beep, beep, beep. And I'm like, this just, it never stops. But then that group was like, that's like an automatic
Yeah.
page. Just an incident was opened and they might need your help. And I sort of was like, I want to help you. Do you want help? And they're like, no, we're almost done.
Nah.
So I was like, okay, thank you. So I'm like literally looking at that channel right now just in case. But
Yeah.
what a real time example of everything we talk about.
Yes. And this last couple of weeks has been hard across the industry, which also can't be easy on the sort of folks who are right? Like GitHub has been just experiencing such degradation, so much degradation that people are starting to leave. Like Mitchell Hashimoto just posted the other day that Ghosty is going to leave GitHub. And you understand the pain of the project, or people are just, they're fed up with trying to do work and not being able to do work. But at the same time, it's very clear, I think someone posted in Reddit a chart that was going around where it was like, here's the Microsoft acquisition, and then here's like the statuses of GitHub, which are they measuring it the same way? Does it have
we all
you
know.
have all these like whatevers, but
lies, damn lies, and charts.
That another thing that somebody's posted, I think somebody within GitHub, maybe the CPO or the CTO, just mentioned, like, look, we've had 14x the traffic this past year, or this past 6 months compared to the previous year. And I just like agentic. It's like, who would have these impacts of automation saturation, right?
I gotta write the messy 9 down again.
Yeah.
The tempo increased for sure. Like we could go through all of them, and I think we'd find them in just GitHub's like journey over the last 6 months.
Yeah. So we're a hug ops culture on this podcast. We're not a blame culture. So I'm not going to talk trash about anyone experiencing incidents. That's not in my DNA.
No, we know how it works exactly, and we're definitely aware of how they failed, and we would have done it better, right? I see so many posts on that. I was like, why don't they just? And I'm like, okay, next
Yeah,
post.
Gurgly, the offender. Yeah.
And Gurgly is a smart person, but that is one orientation that I'm
that behavior is not my favorite out of him. Yeah. And I've always appreciated a lot of his other posts. So it's just kind of, yeah. I was very motivated, of course, through the last 2 weeks to finally take a concept that John Allspaw had done, which is enjoy hindsight bias in the classic Coca-Cola font, like enjoy Coca-Cola, but it's enjoy hindsight bias because of it just inspired me to just finally go do it. So we released some merch for at the RISF shop. That's if you want a cool hat or a notebook or a t-shirt or a sweatshirt that has enjoy hindsight bias
I
on
need
it.
that shirt. Yeah.
You can go to the resilienceandsoftware.org website and click on our store link. And I think everything's up there. You do need there's a private link for the t-shirts because I kind of wanted it to be for members only for the t-shirts. But if you're a friend of the show and you want to give us an email, you can email me at Colette@resilienceandsoftware.org.
Add a question.
I'll send you the link. Yeah. Add a question for us. Do the things, right? We recorded, I think, a good Paper Club episode, man. I think it's a good one. Yeah.
Totally. And it's related to what we were just talking about, actually, which is that people have a journey they need to go through. It's not linear to get to a place, and it's not static either. And reading the paper, I learned, I felt that change in my own feeling. Like, oh yeah, they're right. Like I even shift in and out of this new look thinking.
Yes.
And we think about Gurgly, where we're talking about Gurgly probably is somewhere on the journey with us in some ways, but in other ways,
some days,
like hindsight bias. I haven't gotten to that part of it yet. And I think it was the magic of reading this paper, which I had not read until, Eric sent it over to us. I wasn't aware of its existence, but it's another Dr. Cook banger.
Yeah. So 2 years before the mast, and it's learning how to learn about patient safety. It's a Richard Cook paper. It's 4 pages. We'll link to it in the show notes so you can download it. Lauren Hochstein recently posted it on his blog, or made access available for it because it's hard to find. So yeah, Eric Dobbs recommended it to us. Love Eric. Well, I'll just say a little bit about him right now. He's a member of the Resilience and Software Foundation, which is awesome for us. But here's his official bio. Eric Dobbs is a principal incident analyst at Oracle, and all views here are his own. A self-taught programmer, he's been writing code recreationally for over 4 decades and professionally for 3. He has also practiced Aikido for over 3 decades and taught for 2 of those. His career has meandered through education, consultancies, government, nonprofit, and businesses from startup size to internet scale. He started deliberately practicing learning from incidents in 2018 as part of the Snafu Catchers Consortium. He holds a bachelor's degree in environmental design from the University of Colorado and a 5th degree black belt from Boulder Aikikai. I hope I said that right, Eric. Hi, welcome.
Hi, I am ridiculously excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you.
Been talking about doing this for so long.
I know.
I was explaining to Sarah, my lovely bride, that this is where I get promoted to being one of the cool kids in the Resilience Engineering.
All the cool kids are doing this is fine.
Yeah.
We have great people on your podcast, and I am
now you're one of the cool incident nerds.
Exactly.
I love that having a podcast in our community makes you cool, because in so many communities these days it does not, which is fair. Okay. we're going to talk about, so we've gone back and forth and talked about a lot of different possibilities, but then we landed on a
It's
paper.
a paper.
You're our new edition of Paper Club.
How
So
about
welcome.
that?
Can you tell us about the paper that we've selected, Eric?
Yeah, but first I just have to, like, 20-year-old me can't believe that I'm here to talk about a paper, just so you know. It's been a long time since I was that me, but the paper we are talking about is by Dr. Richard Cook, 2 Years Before the Mast, Learning How to Learn About Patient Safety. And I think the title is juicy, even before you get into what the paper's about. But yeah, that's...
Yeah. So this was a conference, like a conference proceeding paper. Is that where it originates?
Yeah, and it's hard to find on the internet. Lauren just recently posted it among resources for his recon talk. And you have to know people who know people.
I'll post a link to Lauren's
Yeah.
link to get it. So can, is it worth it to explain to folks like how this conference paper situation works? Because I think some people read papers and they're like, this was published in this journal, but this is like a specific thing that was for a proceeding for an actual event, right?
And I think it might not have been formally published, which is why it might be hard to get a hold of. It was there's a
like pictures of a book.
There's a footnote in here about it being requested for presentation at the 1998 Annenberg conference. And the intro, so the bulk of the paper looks a lot like How Complex Systems Fail. It just is absolutely Richard Cook. There's a short, pithy thing, a number on the paragraph, a short, pithy thing, and a few sentences of what the pithy thing really means. And that's like most of the paper. But the intro is like, for our purposes, it's a little history lesson in the patient safety movement.
Okay.
So 1996 was the inaugural Annenberg Health Conference or something like that. I don't have the right name for it, but 96 was the first one. And Richard was invited to present this talk for 1998, which was the next conference. I think they were doing it or biannually. And in the paper, in the intro, this is the fun part. And so I'm going to divide my thoughts for our industry into these two sections. Like the intro part, it irritates me because he talks about the new look, which was 1998. It's not new anymore.
Yeah.
Is it not though? Like,
well, right. Still new, but not anyway. So he's sort of explaining the new look in this introductory matter. It's just a handful of paragraphs. And in the midst of it saying, it's been 2 years since we as a medical community came to the conclusion that the old way of doing safety just doesn't work. It 1996, we definitively decided, in Richard's language, that the old view of the way to create safety is by preventing harm.
Yeah.
The way we used to think about it, and the new way of thinking about it is a system
management.
Yes.
Thinking about it. And a few years ago, we decided that trick didn't work, and it's been 2 years, and we're kind of making progress, but not really. A certain amount of Richard anticipating what, here in the 2000s, we know, healthcare never really did it.
Yeah. So can we talk a little bit first about what the new look is? Because we try to do the basics here. Yeah.
Well, and it's my understanding. The new look is really sort of from this paper, although I've dug around after it. But in general, the new look is taking a systems view of safety, and it's kind of the the old view of safety is that we can prevent harm, and probably that it's linearized views of causality that usually start with somebody screwing up, and what we know is that systems are complicated, and that humans create safety by understanding how the system works, and then the rest of the the rest of the paper is how do you learn how to do that.
Yeah.
Actually the paper does a little bit to try to explain this, right? It does say right on page 1, the new look is not a single theory or a model, but rather a network of theory. Where have we heard this before? It's engineering. What is it? Right. But it and linked empirical findings, and then sort of goes on to say, and here's who you can talk to about it. And they're familiar names: James Reason, right? Jim Reason, Dave Woods, Gary Klein, Charles Billing, Carling Roberts. I've heard some of these names, not all of them.
Yep.
But it does sort of speak to the fact that's why I joke, is it really not the new look? I've heard it called, this is the new view too, right? I've heard people call it that as well. The new is the wrong thing. It's the different one.
Yeah.
Right? It's not new anymore. I totally agree.
Not new anymore.
But it's new to a lot of people. And actually, I think the paper does get into that a little bit, that it's because it's so different from what is. And there's a point where I lost it in the paper where he says, it's not just common sense folk magic or whatever. He didn't say magic.
Oh, folk models.
Yeah. That really hit me. I'm like, oh, this is this is 1998 Richard saying what we're all still feeling.
And the folk models thing is this explicit call out. I have to double check this because I don't actually know when it was published, but I think Woods, I don't know if Richard also wrote this, but Woods did a really great takedown of the concept of situational awareness. So, which they view as a folk model, right? So there's like a good kind of set of responses between the two communities, those who are like, situational awareness is bullshit, and those who are like, no, it's a thing and we study it and we understand it. Sorry, you can tell whose side I'm on with that argument. But they call it a folk model, and that's here. The first time that I heard that term, at least in this kind of literature. So maybe it's also kind of riffing off of that. Because I do think people use that term situational awareness in all kinds of fields with regards to safety and talking about.
I think the reason it's charged for you is because it's usually talked about in the sense of some human failed to have situational awareness. Yeah. And so you're already like imagining an alternate universe where they had it instead of talking about what really happened. And then what is it when you start pulling the thread?
So I think there's definitely that like this it's often situated in human error, right? As a concept. But the other piece of it is that like cognitive scientists who were sort of asserting that it was a thing. I think that there is a real disconnect between the folks who are in the new look and resilience engineering communities, where we are looking at systems, we are looking at kind of what we're taking seriously when somebody tells us and walks us through their experience of an incident, right? An operator of any kind. We take that cognitive systems engineering approach really situates themselves through the perspective of the operator, but with what they're telling you with their consciousness. Situation awareness asserts that there's a part of your consciousness that's like a black box that cannot be known, or something like that. It's like, there's another part of your consciousness, or like some deep, dark thing inside of you that like they can know, but you can't, or something like that. And I think that's also this piece of like, they're just like, no, you just made that up. Like, God or something. So that is cool. So Richard wrote this for, as like part of a proceeding or something conference, and it's in list form. And it's
Yeah.
about learning how to learn.
Yeah. So I think that, the gist of it is he had spent the previous 2 years as an anesthesiologist at a teaching hospital, um, l- teaching people how to think systemically about safety. And this was the quality, the themes or something from 2 years of analysis of motivated people trying to learn how to create safety in this new systemic thinking way. And it's I think it's interesting because in other places when we were before Richard died in the learning from incidents community, um, his discussions about learning were pretty squarely about individuals learning.
Mm.
But in this paper, it's a little bit mixed, whether we're talking about individual learning or organizational learning. It's kind of both. And I am starting to think that organizational learning isn't actually a thing. Like, but I can't quite make that claim.
It's just collective individual learning.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I mean, where does the org's brain hook up?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair point.
The closest I can think of that might qualify as organizational learning is that maybe in fact the artifacts we leave behind or the processes we invent that survive our tenure at a given institution, that those might qualify as some sort of memory of the organization. To a degree, if you infect the culture with behavior, that might qualify as a memory for a superorganism. But and learning, I just made learning into memory, and that's not the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that I think it creates opportunities for it, right? But that the actual act of it itself requires a person, like a
Yeah.
single person on the other end, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is also, I think, I've never met somebody who's involved in this field, this particular kind of crew of folks that doesn't cringe at the word culture, right?
I know.
And that feels related, right? Which is like, what is culture? And like,
I mean,
why
there
do
are
people...
these emergent behaviors, there are emergent things about humans acting together, and we're interested in resilience engineering, right? We like a joint cognitive system. That's our unit of analysis, is a small group of people and the tools they're using. So yeah. I am struck by this paper. I mean, part of... All right, I got to back up a minute. First, I got to talk about why I became aware of this paper.
Okay.
So in 2019, in the Learning from Incidents channel, we were having a conversation, and under Chatham House rules, I can't tell you who was involved. But one of our friends asked if it was a good idea for computer science teachers to teach this stuff to their students, or does it require... It was the context was there had been some other conversation about how important it is to have some operational experience to really get this. So, could teachers teach it in a computer science curriculum? Would that be useful? And the answer was more or less no. But it was more elaborate than that. And this is the part that's fun. One of the experts who was in the conversation had witnessed a lot of grad students going through the learning, and said, you don't get through this gauntlet of learning, this paradigm shift, really, any faster than 2 years. Like, it is a 2-year journey if you already have operational experience and you're at a good program with good mentors and time to reflect. And the bullet, the numbered items in this list are sort of examples of places where you end up departing from the path, or you forget parts of what you learned, or like the learning is not a smooth transition. It's really hard. So,
and so you're talking about teaching people about operational safety more broadly, or are you talking about teaching people about like resilience engineering and like
this is specifically understanding systems. With the intro to this section, understanding the complexity of systems, and I think the context of safety and engineering, it's a slow project.
Okay, cool. So you're recounting this conversation. So and this paper gets brought up.
Yeah, well, so that was 2019, and one of the two Chatham House containers with Slack workspaces. I asked for is there anything like a maturity model? Now, at the time, I was working for Indeed, and changes had happened in my life there, and I was getting asked by a different group of leaders, and I had been spending the first half of my career at Indeed, I was doing stuff for the sharp end, and the second half of my career at Indeed, I was trying to do stuff for the blunt end. And I think the sharp end was wildly successful, and I feel like the blunt end, the story arc ends badly. So the blunt end didn't work, right? They uninvested in this line of work ultimately. And but I was looking for a maturity model, and I cringe. Even again, 20-year-old me is like, "Who the hell are you, Eric? Maturity model, really?"
So a maturity model around adopting these like learning from incidents practices, or like what?
Yeah, yeah, maturity model around resilience engineering, roughly. Like understanding why you care about learning from incidents as a product discovery tool, like how you keep your business running, as opposed to how you prevent error, or prevent harm, right? Like there's another angle to look at. If you drink this Kool-Aid, if you can make the paradigm shift, you're in a completely different world, and suddenly incidents are a world of adventure and excitement, and there's so much you can learn, and there's so much reality revealed if you go look at that spot instead of cringing in horror and like never let that happen again.
Yeah, just getting some shallow metrics and moving on with your life once you check off your action items. Yeah, no, 100%. But I think
I'm sorry, that shift is something that we talked to about a lot. I just wanted to call it out, that like it's not just about the learning, it's about the staying in it. Like there's just so much desire to move past and to avoid, right? And sometimes that makes me think about like attachment theory in therapy. Like, people are anxious about their incidents, they want to avoid them, versus having a secure relationship with your people and saying, no, we're going to lean into this hard conversation because I want to learn what's going on with you so that we can do things better. Right. And I see that throughout this paper, that, that's part of all the difficulties of learning, is that it hurts a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think like what's hard about that maturity model thing feels somewhat inherent to what resilience engineering tells us, which is that resilience is happening in your organization, whether you want it to or not. Like, so pointing to a maturity model might be about the only way I can see a maturity model is a maturity model in terms of an executive layer's understanding of what's really happening in their organization, right? Or an acceptance level of what's really happening in the organization.
I was reaching for something like a maturity model because I needed to talk to leaders who don't have time to learn this stuff, right? So I'm doing the math myself. If this is a 2-year journey based on these conversations with people who really know what they're talking about, and I gotta qualify this because I'm a computer geek. I am not an academic. Like, I'm a programmer. Everybody I ever talk to is like, don't show me a paper. I am that guy. So to be here talking about a paper and to be here as a guy who reads the papers now, like
you must have been in a real spot.
Well,
who are we?
Let me bring a quote. One of these is in here. learning requires dissonance between belief and experiences. That's the short story on item number 2 from the list. So
Yeah.
I had to learn that there was useful stuff to be gotten by reading a paper from researchers. Like, I couldn't believe that was a thing, because I had the conventional software. I'm smarter than the rest of every other business. This computer stuff is new and we're changing everything, and
Yeah.
all the rules are different.
And you just don't understand us. Yeah.
Now, here's one of the ways I learned. And I am a Richard Cook fanboy. I'm here because of Richard Cook. So he came to New Relic while I was there. I got into this club because Snafu Catchers was happening in their second cycle. He was doing stuff in New Relic, and I got a hold of a PDF. He had printed out a Slack transcript, and then with 4 different colors of pen had annotated this transcript of the segments of an interesting thing. And down one side in one color were delta timestamps. So that, Slack had the actual times, and they were like delta T from some 0. And I don't quite remember where 0 was. And then there was, this other thing. And in the black color pen, there was like, on this one line, just a little comment. How did he know? And he had introduced himself as the simple country doctor, and I was believing that. So I'm looking at this
disarming
transcript. So for 2 things that jump out at me at the handwritten transcript, his penmanship is that of an architect.
Yes.
Now, I know the penmanship of an architect because that's how I was trained. I came out of an architecture program. Actually, I designed my own degree within an architecture program. Fast forward in my life, I learned Richard had designed his own program, and it included some actual like architecture shape work. So he had that penmanship. I recognized the handwriting, and I'm like, what is a country? Doctors have crappy penmanship. This guy's writing like an architect. What gives? I didn't really notice that I was paying attention to that. But then how does he know that one of our best SREs had this? His comment is on one of the ringers of our SREs. And he's like, he's got a little annotation. How does he know? And I'm like, how does country doctor, like, why is he annotating this guy's comment? So anyway, turns out he's not just a country doctor. He started his life in computing.
Yes.
So, yeah, but
well, and let me ask a personal question for you, Eric. At that point, where were you in your journey and your view, your new look? So had you adopted? Were you curious? Was this the first time you had encountered that?
Yeah, New Relic was a great experience for me. My job prior, I was the DevOps guy, which should be comical to anybody who knows what DevOps is really supposed to be. But I was that guy. I had started into infrastructure as code at this sort of previous job. And I had a 5-year plan. It included containerization. I was telling all the people the things. We were deferring a decision on whether it would be Kubernetes or Docker Swarm. And I was going to automate everything. I had a 5-year plan. I got to New Relic, and they were about 3 years ahead of my 5-year plan. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. But why are they having so many incidents? In my plan,
because your plan was 0 incidents at the end.
My plan included automating the incidents
at the end of the 5 years.
Yeah. There were no incidents in the automating everything meant no incidents.
That
and
obviously.
Here I was way ahead on that plan, and way more teams, microservices, and DevOps. Really, New Relic was like a DevOps heaven. About half the company were SREs. If not entitled, definitely an experience. And when your customers expect to see results within 5 minutes of sending you data, that's a short turnaround. And when they're programmers, they're opinionated about how your system should be running. Anyway, the level of engineering excellence there was extraordinary. And among the 40 teams, each one of them were having an incident a week, probably. And it turns out, Richard and Beth wrote a paper. Y'all had a conversation about it. That's the right tempo to have a really rich and capable incident culture. And so I got a complete introduction to how a whole bunch of stuff that explained why I was having so much trouble automating the things in my previous job. And I had already been in why is infrastructure so much harder to automate? Why does code around infrastructure harder than applications? What gives here? I'm a good programmer. I'm an even better programmer than I was when I started this job. And why can't I automate this stuff?
It just keeps getting harder. I don't understand.
So I think that story, well, this is the learning, right? And the more exposure to production, the more close. I've had a lot of jobs in startups where everybody's in production. So I already had that experience in my life, but the operations is where we actually serve customers with software. Everything before operations is vaporware. And but we don't seem to know that as an industry. And man, that's about to get worse.
Oh, yes.
Right?
I was going to say, I believe the words we're looking for, or no, the phrase. I was talking to somebody the other day and I said, in my experience, this AI stuff is really great for when you're building, like writing code and building software. I have yet to see it prove any value at all when it comes to actually operating it.
Yeah.
Like dealing with what it is in the wild.
Yeah. I am looking to see if I see the things that look compelling there, and I haven't seen it yet.
I don't even disbelieve, like, if something crops up in the next couple of years, like, great, awesome. I just haven't seen it yet, right? It could be that we're just behind the curve on that aspect of.
Ops has been behind the curve of all software since it existed and was identified as a different thing. So
yeah, but that's
I'm kind of like, we're always kind of the victims downstream of whatever they're cooking up in the software development bin, right? Like,
but that is also how
Ops didn't invent Ruby, right?
That is how we keep stuff running, right? Use boring tools. So then the challenge is, how do you learn this stuff? Like, right?
How do you learn what stuff?
How do I teach programmers about operations when I'm in operations, and the class structure in software, operations is lower class? There's this odd thing where if you're an SRE, you can get paid more, but somehow you're still, I think, lower class in most.
Is that true? I don't know.
Maybe it depends on the company. Like,
yeah. What does lower class mean?
Yeah.
If it doesn't mean that you get paid less.
Cultural question.
Oh, here's what it means: whether you have to be on call at night. That doesn't quite apply to Clint because he likes being on call.
Well, no, but
don't tell me about.
So I would argue that I've seen the opposite. So, like, in the past, I've had SRE teams that, because they didn't own any software, like they weren't building software, they weren't on call at night, like, or if they had a tool, it was like a dev tool, and so it wasn't maybe defined as being in critical path. Whereas when I've been in most companies, like, the people on call are the people building the software.
Interesting. So now we're running into what does
SRE mean? Yeah.
It's different depending on what company you're in.
Yeah. And I will say, like, a lot of them would have like like we would usually have an assistance on call that was like, oh, if there's a big incident, like, we'll get pulled in to help with it. But, like, that was an escalation path, not an automatic thing, right?
Yeah, and legend has it that the Google SRE gets to tell the other teams they don't get to run their stuff in production. Like, that's definitely a different power dynamic than where I have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but we can all tell anybody anything we want, right?
Yeah.
The difference is when they tell.
Yeah.
Does the leadership structure and the business follow? Right. So, SRE will lead on that conversation and say, hey, this is a constraint that's not met.
I'm not gonna say how I know this, because that would be rude. But I have a suspicion, a strong held suspicion that may or may not have been confirmed by some people, that those conversations are often political and involve vice presidents of engineering and above, rather than actually being conversations between teams. So like how it actually plays out is around like headcount, horse trading, and
the happy
and
path stays between teams.
Yeah.
And the not so happy path does.
That is
and
most
I think
frequently
that's actually
used.
my point.
Yeah.
Is that moment where the team that has a deadline comes back and says SRE said is when you find out how this actually works, and when you learn whether or not this has teeth, or if it's just a thing we wrote down.
And when your SRE VP says, oh, well, we agreed to do this, but I got 10 more headcount out of it for the next 3 quarters, so that's how we're going to play the game, right?
Yeah 10 more fresh unlearned headcount,
because that also doesn't that clearly helps you. It doesn't make your job harder, right? Giving you 10 more people to train, figure out how to integrate into your so you're at New Relic. You are like, why are there's all these incidents? What's going on? Like, Richard shows up and blows your mind.
Yeah.
And you read this paper then?
No, but this is about it was about that time that the conversation's happening around how long does it take to learn this stuff, and do you teach like CS undergrads or master's students, or do you have to have already had some lived experience? And the answer to that sort of conversation was definitely around it is much harder to learn how systems work if you haven't had some kind of operational role in some career. And examples of operational roles, I think working in a kitchen probably counts as operational experience, right? Being in a band counts, right? I know somebody who might have been in a band or two. And so, nurses, pilots, people who worked in an oil derrick, people who've done operations in a software company, all have this lived experience that is the subject matter of resilience engineering. Like, that's where the stuff makes sense. And some of the reason that a computer geek who believes nothing in academia is relevant is suddenly surprised to be reading academic papers is because the academic papers are about how to run stuff. And this is the other thing that I think is compelling to me about the timing of this paper. Anesthesiology as a discipline within medicine was like a decade or 15 years or something ahead of the rest of medicine on understanding a systems view about safety and health and the complexity of what was going on. There's something about being the anesthesiologist in the surgery. You're keeping the patient unconscious, so you have to be aware of their consciousness, right? You're already paying attention to their head so that the surgeon can do the thing, right? To this living organism and then get you back out of unconsciousness.
They're kind of like the surgery's ops person. Like, right? Like, they have to keep the patient stable while we make changes. I mean, I don't want to go too far with that analogy, but they are the CICD for the surgery, right? And so they have a different view, and that's where I've always felt this way. That when I heard that Richard was an anesthesiologist, having only interacted with a few and noticing they come in at different times than any other doctor, they say different words, they look at things differently, and they have one of the more ambiguous things to deal with. Yeah. And so there's a lot that doctors can learn from them because they're not tied to the same metrics. They're not tied to the same outcomes. They have a very different view. And that's kind of, this gets into that dissonance that they bring is golden for learning.
Yeah. Yeah. So the conversation about how long it takes, so the years later, Richard has passed away. I'm asking about the maturity model, and somebody brings this paper forward. And it was, so the other concrete answer I got to the question was Hallnagel's RAG, the Resilience Assessment Grid. Not sure I got the right. And RAG is confusing now. No, we're not talking about AI.
Yeah.
But so that was offered. I went and looked at it. I was like, oh, this is the tool I need, but that's too hard for me to do right now. and more importantly, it's meta. So it wasn't the answer to my leader's question of, it didn't give me the maturity model. It gave me the toolkit for how I would go build one, sort of. Right. Not even really that, but it was at least in the direction. And then this paper. And as I was reading this paper, here on line 8 was, line 8, learning recapitulates the sequence of research that comprises the new look. So certain components are essential groundwork for others. There's variations in the primary sequence, but it seems like what we see is people retracing the history of the research. And then it goes on. The sequence is roughly, I think this is gold. This is my curriculum. This is what I, right? And when I say curriculum, mostly like for my self-study, but like when I'm trying to bring my colleagues along, this is kind of what's in my head about how I need to introduce it. The sequence is roughly from 1, understanding complex system failure, to 2, characteristics of human expertise in context, 3, the social character of error is in quotes here, and problems with attributions of cause, also in quotes here. Just the fact that those words are in quotes is already a thing you got to get your head around, folks.
Yeah.
4, the limited and paradoxical effects of countermeasures designed to forestall error, again in quotes. Paradoxical effects of countermeasures designed.
Lorentz law, anyone?
Yeah, you might continue Lorentz law. Like we have a name for it, but the broader consequences of reactions to failure that shape individual and organizational function. That's number 5. Now we're getting to the blunt end, right? I mean, I guess we're sort of crossing all of the 6. The notion of safety creation as an active product of efforts at every level of the organization. And then 7, the search for means to support creation of safety.
Which is resilience engineering, right?
Which is resilience engineering. So, that's not a short project.
Yeah, I mean, even 1, understanding complex system failure, like, I think this is like the hardest thing for me, for executives, for just number 1 is, do you accept that failure will happen, that incidents will happen? Do you accept that you have no control over that nobody has any control over that like there is less control over your systems right now, control in the way that you think of control,
right,
over your systems right now, and then anybody would be comfortable with in the world, right? Like you have to be very comfortable with your discomfort there, I think, to move beyond into the next sequence, right? The next step.
And the time, here's the thing that I was banging my head against at the time that I became introduced to this paper. I'm trying to talk to leaders, and you're telling me this is a 2-year journey if you have operational experience and you're going through a program. So the best I've got is maybe 5 years if it's a motivated leader, right? Because the leader's not going to Lund, right? And they don't have time to listen to me. If I were able to give the, Eric's eavesdropping on other people who went to Lund version of how you learn resilience engineering, right? Like it's inconceivable that leaders make this trip. And maybe I'm daring software leaders in the software industry to prove me wrong. And maybe what happens is that some of our friends who've been to Lund find their way into leadership, and then that's how this kind of knowledge is available at that level in the organization, or we're into all of the other findings in this in this collection of observations about learning, like number 6, learning about safety is not permanent. What is learned can be forgotten. Knowledge can become stale, inert, and inaccessible. Continuing experience at the sharp end is valuable to prevent forgetting. Oh, that's an interesting one.
Prevent forgetting. Yeah.
Exposure to near catastrophic failures, conflicts, uncertainty reinforce the learning.
Yep.
The longer one's disconnected from ground truth of technical work, the more understanding of systems and human performance tends to recede and to be replaced by the naive and easy folk theories that we were gesturing at before. Yeah, that's squarely pointed at folks who got promoted out of operations and then forgot what the world looked like there.
Well, they remember the parts that serve them, right? And the way it was when they were there, and that actually becomes counter to learning often, and that it creates biases, and that's, I've noticed that effect. And to your point about like whether or not leaders are going to get there, this is also pointing out that you may have gotten all the way through this, and you may be on that last step of I'm doing resilience engineering, and then move into a different role and go all the way back to number 1. Like, it's totally conceivable. We can all get into a space where we're forgetting. I find myself sometimes halfway through an incident going, wait a minute. I know I hate root cause, but I'm actually getting wrapped up in what feels like root cause analysis, right? We can forget because in the context, and I think this is the point of what I took away from this paper, is that the context really matters and it changes all the time. And I think that's what Richard was noticing, is that as people got excited in 1996, they started walking up that hill and then they got busy. And some of them got pushed off or backed off or moved to a different position. And I think that's really, really interesting. And it's a really helpful thing for me to know as I'm trying to expect people to get going on this journey, not linear. Like, there's a linear progression of how we assess ourselves, but your journey, it goes back and forward and left and right all the time.
Yeah. So my dare to the software industry is to do better than medicine. Like, can we actually, if we're so smart at at disrupting people, can we not get stuck between two paradigms? I'm not sure we can. And then, like, realistically, if people don't take me up on my dare, we're going to be in this world that's pretty well described in this paper, where people are learning, people are forgetting. Some of the people know, some of the people don't, and that's the world we live in. And it's going to be always going to be too hard to get an 5-year project. Software doesn't think in 5-year projects.
But I wonder if there's a different way to look at this list, though, which is to help you identify allies across an organization at a given point in time, and to help you amplify one piece at a time, learning where you can, right? In that true resilience engineering sense, like, the resilience exists, like, this is happening.
Yeah.
And so if yes, unfortunately, I hate to say it, Eric, but it might be a fool's errand to create a master plan to introduce everybody in an executive team to these concepts and take them through it and hold their hands and get them there. But that doesn't mean that one or two of them won't learn by what you're able to put in front of them, by the engineering that you're doing, right? Like, I think that maybe the answer might be that, like, these are kind of like laws. These are things that are immutable. And if we work with them rather than try to force them onto people, that maybe we can do some good.
Yeah.
Leave it a little bit better than it was before.
Well, and this is my other big takeaway from the paper that kind of surprised me, but on slightly closer inspection, creating safety is learning. The system's changing. It changed since the last time I touched it. I got to learn what it is right now. And when I do that, that's the moment in the incident when I stop chasing a root cause. I take a step back, I have a moment of reflection because I notice and I replan. Or somebody comes in with a different insight and they reframe the whole. Oh, that's what we're.
That's how it works. Yeah,
that's where safety happens. Is right there.
There's a new book out by Mikey Dickerson and some of his colleagues at Layer Aleph called Crisis Engineering. And I think that like the first step in crisis, well, that what they talk about is fundamental surprise at the beginning of their like process map, right? And for them, this like getting people realigned to the fundamental, like realigned to the new reality, like the thing that has revealed to them that reality is different, right? That is such a fundamental part of crisis engineering. And it really reminded me of kind of what we're talking about, like what learning in and of itself is, right? Which is sort of lifting a veil over that was over your eyes and helping you see what's real. You know?
Yeah. Well, in that calibration with reality, that's the thing that we're really doing. And we're continually confronted by, wait, I thought it worked differently than that. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about a paper and my resilience journey that, touches on it in a couple places. That's been a blast.
Thank you for joining us. We're going to there's an upcoming RASF event that is really relevant to our conversation today. Matt Davis, who's an RASF member, is going to lead a practice of practice gamelon to kind of help people understand how we learn about systems and how to help people learn about systems. So I'm excited to do that. I'll post a link to it at the end of this. Maybe we will also have to do a paper club on this paper. Would you guys be up for it?
Yeah, I'd be game.
All right, cool.
Love a good paper.
We'll also try to get that on the schedule. Yeah. And this is a nice, we're trying to choose like this, like 4 pages and like, 8 or 9 points. Like love a good Richard Cook paper because they're never too terrible to get through.
Well, and
his brevity is cherished.
Well, and the great thing about these artifacts is they keep teaching, right?
Yep.
So
it's really awesome.
I want to make how, like, I don't know what, like 2 years before the mast dot something. So I send people to how.complexsystems.fail quite a bit. And I kind of want these numbered, like the same thing on a website somewhere. Probably, I don't know if we can get permission from.
I want that too.
We'll talk to John.
Like, we might
know something.
Yeah,
because I think these things are really, really relevant, and like you said, there are sort of laws we need to work with. I don't see any of them have degraded in time, and this has been great. It was a really nice opportunity to go through the paper. Thanks for suggesting it, Eric.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.